it made me wonder immediately about who was being hurt.
Who it is, when it happened, where it happened, I have no idea.
It wasn't dealing with anybody on the shows or anything, right?
It was a child actor.
On one of our shows?
Yes.
I just got done watching Quiet on Set. Man, what a journey. So for those of you guys that are unaware, Quiet on Set is a documentary that came out literally a few days ago at the time of recording this video, based around the abuse, sexual things that I probably can't say on YouTube, and pedophilia that went down on the set of many Nickelodeon shows, including the biggest ones to date to this day: Drake and Josh, The Amanda Show, iCarly, Victorious, Sam and Cat, all that stuff. Everything terrible that went down on those sets behind the scenes is exposed in this documentary created by Investigation Discovery. And there were some big names that spoke out against the creators behind these shows, such as Giovanni Samuels, Kate Taylor, Sachi Cool, and the big one that is trending all over the place because of his interview, Drake Bell, which we will get into later on. Now, one of the first things that really struck me about this documentary was obviously Dan Schneider, but one of the people that seems to be very overlooked in this documentary is Brian Peck. If you guys don't know anything about the man Brian Peck, he was one of the most infamous names in children's TV show history, mainly because of his inability to control himself sexually around children. And Drake Bell goes deep into what happened to him offset while Brian Peck was his acting coach and was basically letting Drake live with him for a while because he had nowhere to go. Drake had a really fraught relationship with his family while he was in his acting career, and Brian was someone that he turned to trust, and unfortunately, it went down in possibly the worst way you could ever imagine.
I was sleeping on the couch where I would usually sleep, and I woke up to him. I just opened my eyes, I woke up, and he was sexually assaulting me.
But I want to get more into the Drake Bell interview later. What I really want to talk about now is all the jokes, everything that we missed as children, that it kind of went over our heads, because obviously these shows are made for children, and there is nothing wrong with having an occasional adult joke in your show. But when it's to a gross extent like it was in some of these shows, you really have to question, is this even comedy anymore? Or is this just a way to make over-sexualize things, you know? One of the first things they jump into in this documentary is a lot of the outtakes and extras on the website from Victorious called theslap.com. A lot of those bonus clips that you saw, with, for example, Tori pouring ketchup all over her feet, Ariana Grande Kat putting her foot in her mouth, and then this very infamous clip of Kat squeezing a potato and saying, "Give up the juice."
Come on! Give up the juice!
Again, as a kid, it's very easy to overlook these things, mainly because, you're a kid, you still have an innocent mind. Aha, a girl squeezing a potato, it's nothing that bad. But looking at it through the eyes of an adult, first of all, at the time, the entire cast was on set. They were minors. These girls were only 16, 17. So over-sexualizing them in such a way is kind of questionable, especially when it's to an extent like this. And as Dan Schneider's shows went on, I can totally tell a lot more sexual jokes were put into place. During the Amanda Show, Drake and Josh and iCarly phase, the jokes were more so subtle. They weren't in your face, but they were still there. There was still literally one of the apartment numbers in Carly's building is 8D. Now, for those of you guys that don't know the euphemism behind 8D, you're too young. But for those of you guys that do, it's basically a dick and balls. And as his shows went on, the jokes in them went from like occasional subtle jokes to like every episode had like 5 adult jokes. Victorious, Dan must have not cared whatsoever. He went full on hog wild with these adult jokes. There is so many adult jokes in Victorious that I'm going to put up on screen right now that it's not even funny. Like at a certain point, it's not even funny. It's like, okay, we get it. Yeah, over-sexualizing kids. Haha. When is this going to stop?
I've always gotten A's in music. How does a person go from an A to a D?
Happened to me in 8th grade.
Yeah.
Take her behind the screen and get her a dress. Come on, come on, come on. What are you doing? Oh my God,
Just the girls.
And even at the end of the episodes, when the Sony Music logo would flash on screen, he would put a weird quip that one of the cast members said during the show, and they always felt kind of weird to me. Like, a lot of people have pointed out he knew what he was doing. Like, some of them are very innocent, but some of them sound like this.
I heard you swallow.
Toot your pickle.
Here comes that feeling. That is a quality foot.
Sometimes I do it to myself.
I don't want to get blackballed. It's average.
What are you into? I like it. But it hurts.
I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but again, this documentary, Quiet on Set, exposes everything behind the scenes, and a lot of the time, stuff wasn't even happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors. A lot of the time, stuff was happening on sets. You can see so many videos of Dan making these actors and actresses uncomfortable on set while he's actively filming and documenting him doing this.
She say nice things about me? Because I will tase her if necessary.
Uh-oh.
I have the taser. We haven't had to use it in a long time. But
I said lots of nice things.
No, I said nice things about you too.
Oh.
And the camera was... That was amazing. That was one of the better things I've ever heard.
Hey.
Hi, what's going on here?
Nothing. You didn't cut out that part.
Why are you sitting on the floor of the set?
Because we are.
They are. Did you just bark?
No. I haven't got my costume on yet. Are we close to rolling?
Sorry. Caught Jerry in a bad mood.
Now, I know what a lot of people think. Well, if he really was, like, as bad of a person as he says he is, why is he filming basically him committing these crimes and him doing these awful things? Isn't that asking to get caught? That's one of the things that the whole lore behind pedophilia specializes in. If you are confident enough to not only show your face, but document what you're doing, it's a power struggle. It's such a power move to be able to show your face while doing these awful actions. It's such a power move to be able to brag about these actions on camera or online and stuff like that. And it's so disturbing to watch because we as kids watched on innocently through our childlike eyes, just fun kids having a great time being Nickelodeon stars, unbeknownst to the fact that behind the scenes, they were probably living out some of the worst years of their lives. One of the bigger examples of this that is more well known, even long before this documentary came out, Jeanette McCurdy. If you guys have not read her memoir yet, I'm glad my mom died. It is a deep insight as to how acting basically destroyed her entire life. And I saw someone comment this a long time ago, but it really stoops to like how awful things were for her. Someone said she ruined her childhood just so she could be mine. And she's really strong for that. To be able to not only put herself out there and be one of the first cast members to share her story, but also be brave enough to write an entire book about it and go on camera and speak about these awful things like her eating disorder and her abuse behind the scenes and stuff like that. it must have been a harrowing experience for her. If you guys have not seen her interview on ABC News, you guys probably should, because it is an insightful interview. And even long before this show came out, there were so many videos around Dan Schneider of him, like, because this was around the time the whole Me Too movement started to take off, where actors and actresses were talking about their experiences with assault and sexual assault behind the scenes and on camera and stuff like that. And around 2017, when the movement was really taking off, so many videos about Dan Schneider being a creep were put up online, you know, and so many videos exposing him. This was when, also around the time that Nickelodeon parted ways with Dan Schneider. Yeah, literally out of nowhere, Nickelodeon decided to fire one of its biggest and best writers. And I've always said this about Dan Schneider, and I probably shouldn't because he's such an awful person, but this man is a fucking genius. It sucks. It really sucks that he is the person he is, because this man is a comedy genius. This man pioneered some of the greatest shows in the history of kids and television, just television in general. iCarly was a record-breaking hit with tweens on the internet at the time. Not just on the internet. iCarly aired right at the time that the internet was starting to gain traction and get more popular. 2007, if I remember correct. And right as the internet was getting popular, Dan realized, hey, I need to make a show about the internet to show the wonders of the internet and how. And that's one of the reasons iCarly was made. iCarly was made to show that the internet is not just a source to make money off of. It's something to be enjoyed and to be educated by. And Dan's genius really shined through his comedy, his storytelling. He had the ability to make you laugh 1 minute and cry the next minute. As you saw with the final episode of iCarly, I Goodbye, when they all said goodbye to each other, I cried out loud seeing Carly and Sam hug in that elevator. It was such an emotional experience because I had watched every single episode of iCarly leading up to the final episode, and it was so emotional to see the cast saying goodbye, you know? And again, that really shows how much of a genius this man truly was. He had slapstick humor. He had storytelling ability. He had the ability to make you feel 3 different emotions in 5 minutes. This man was amazing. And it sucks that he's the person he is. He threw all of that talent away. This man is literally considered one of the most successful writers in TV history. And all of that thrown out the window because he couldn't control his urges to sexualize children. And that's going to lead me to the next point of the video, which is Drake Bell's interview. Now, what's really interesting about Drake Bell's interview is that it more so dives into the story he suffered behind Brian Peck, the guy we talked about at the beginning of the video. He's an awful person. And honestly, and this is just my personal opinion, don't attack me for this, Brian Peck makes Dan Schneider look like a saint. Brian was actively assaulting these children on set. Actively. There was another guy that they mentioned in the documentary, I can't remember his name, who had stashes and stashes of child pornography, including, and this part disturbed me deeply, including a 7-year-old girl's panties in a plastic bag. Yeah, you heard that right. 7 years old. Her panties in a plastic bag. And what was his prison sentence for having over 10,000 images and over 100 videos of child pornography? 6 years. 6 years. For all of that. Now, a lot of you guys might be wondering, well, if all this abuse was going on behind the scenes, why didn't anyone say anything? No one wanted to say anything. No one could say anything because Dan Schneider, Brian Peck, these guys are Nickelodeon's golden boys. They even mention it in the documentary. They are the golden boys. They are what bring in the majority of the money for Nickelodeon. And if you are in a position where someone is making you a ton of money, you will go out of your way to make sure you do not lose that person, even if it means defending something terrible they did. And that's exactly what happened with Brian Peck, the guy named James, and Dan Schneider. They didn't want to lose him. They knew this stuff was going on behind the scenes, but no one wanted to say anything because Dan was raking in millions and millions of dollars. So, what are you going to do? What are you going to do if everyone is literally against you? Like, you've been abused and you know you've been abused by this person, but no one's going to listen to you because the man who did it to you is a multimillionaire and brings in a lot of money for the company. And that was one of the main pointers in Drake Bell's interview. Drake Bell, sadly, mind you, brings up in his interview that he was sexually assaulted in his sleep by Brian Peck. And after he was arrested for child molestation, I believe about a couple months or a couple weeks later, he was in court and Drake had to go testify against him in court. And when they arrived in the court, Brian Peck's side was full of supporters who were there to defend him. Yeah, that's right. Supporters from Nickelodeon who were all there to defend Brian Peck, a man who sexually assaulted and molested children, one of them in their sleep. And Drake Bell's side, completely empty. He said it was just him, his mom, I believe his dad, and his brother. Again, when someone is a golden boy, they don't want to get rid of that person. Is it inhumane? Absolutely. These motherfuckers should be locked up for life. They should not have the ability to go back to working on kids' television, which is exactly what Brian Peck did. Literally, not even a few years after being released from prison. He was only in prison for a couple years. I believe, like, maybe 6. I don't even remember. I don't even know if they mentioned it in the show. This man only served, like, half of what innocent people serve in prison for sexually assaulting and molesting children. And once he was released, he went straight back to working on kids' TV. Not only kids' TV, big kids' TV. He worked on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, where he played a mirror. He went back to his Pickle Boy persona, which everyone even questioned that back in the day. I mean, pickles obviously have a phallic shape, so come on. And his name was Pickle Boy, and he was constantly carrying around a giant tray of pickles. Put 2 and 2 together, people. It was such a disheartening thing to watch, knowing that all of this, literally all of it, was happening behind the scenes while we were watching as children, unaware. Because through our childlike eyes, these guys were just living their lives. They were being actors, and they were entertaining us. And even Drake himself said his goal was always to entertain us. You know, his goal was always to... He wanted to be an entertainer. He loved making people laugh, you know? And unfortunately, these kids who were promised fame, fortune, and stardom, a lot of them ended up having some of the worst experiences of their lives on set. It was truly awful to hear some of these childhood stars tell their stories about feeling so uncomfortable on set. One of the guys, I can't remember his name, but one of the guys who shared his story, Leon Farrison, one of the guys from Now, I didn't watch All That growing up, but a lot of the cast members from All That were on this show sharing their story. He mentioned that there was a scene where he played a superhero. First of all, he never liked wearing things like spandex and like tight clothes because he was a little kid. You know, little kids shouldn't be wearing these tight little superhero outfits that show off their like childlike body. It's weird. It was like a unitard and stuff like that. But he was wearing it, and he played a superhero called Noseboy. And you can't help but notice that the noses that were on his shoulders looked kind of like a private area. Penis and testicles. That's what it looked like on his shoulder.
They put this same nose on the costume.
What are your special powers?
You can't help but notice that it looks like penis and testicles on my shoulders.
And there was another, and in that same scene, he comes in and like introduces himself as Noseboy, and then he sneezes on the woman who is sitting at the desk, and it literally looks like a shot. I don't know if I can even say that on YouTube, but a sexual, I don't even know if I can do the motion. I don't know what YouTube allows anymore. A cum shot. I'm just going to say it looked like a cum shot.
And the joke in that sketch is effectively a shot joke. It's a shot joke for children.
And it was and that was like not even the only example. In the Amanda show, when Amanda was only or is it Jamie Lynn Spears? One of the two, I can't remember. But one of the girls who was only 13 years old, there was a joke where one of her friends was trying to open a goo packet, like one of those little like jelly packets that you like slurp up, and it opens and goo sprays on her face. Again, like a cum shot. There was a lot of these jokes, and the girls were only 13 at the time. 13, and these jokes are being made. It's terrible. It's deplorable. It's like, and a lot of the kids had very well mentioned they felt so uncomfortable. And now I feel like a lot of them have finally gotten the freedom to share their story. And it's so, like, it's great. It's a great documentary, and it's so insightful to hear these kids share the awful times they've had on sets. But it's, I don't know, it's so disheartening knowing that they went through all this behind the scenes, and we were none the wiser because we were so young, we didn't even know. Now keep in mind, right now there's only 3 episodes available on the streaming service that I'm watching it on, but there is a 4th episode coming out, and I don't know when this video is going to get done. So by the time this video gets done, if episode 4 is out and I watch it, I will give updates. But something interesting that happened was an interview. Do you guys know the name of Boogie? Not Boogie 2988, Boogie. You may not know that name, but you will know his face. He played Tebow on iCarly. And just a few days ago, he released an interview with Dan Schneider. Needless to say, that interview did not go over very well. Everyone was upset at Boogie. Everyone was like, why are you giving this monster a chance to speak his side of the story? What side do we need to hear? We've heard similar stories from so many actors and actresses. Why is this man speaking as if he needs to speak his innocence or clear his name? The damage has already been done, you know? His face is no longer on the Nickelodeon wall of creators. I heard about that. They removed his face. So why is Boogie giving this guy a chance to speak his mind? It's almost like he was, in the interview, it's almost as if he was trying to, like, allow Dan to discredit the allegations, which they're not even allegations. There's proof of these things happening. There's so much abuse that goes on behind the scenes, you know? The worst part is that this isn't even the only example. There's so many instances of directors, musicians, writers, all these people being so abusive and sexually violating these people behind the scenes. And that's why the Me Too movement came out, because these people needed a platform to speak on. And it's so awful that, like, that someone even thought to themselves, let me give this man a chance to speak his innocence. Let's see what he has to say about the documentary. I understand, you know, he probably was like Dan was probably watching this documentary with like such disappointment in his face, but the damage has already been done. You cannot go back. There is no, oh, I regret what I did. Well, then you wouldn't have done it. You would not have done it. And there are so many people but unfortunately, like I said earlier, there are so many network executives that will defend these people to the end of time simply because they make a lot of money. Now, I don't know what Tebow's motivation behind interviewing Dan Schneider was, but it could not have been good. It really was not all that good. And it did not leave a good impression on Tebow's career or anything like that. So, I don't know. If you guys have watched Quiet on Set, let me know what you think about it. If you guys want to watch it, it's available on all of these streaming services. And at the very least, go and watch the trailer. If you guys didn't watch Nickelodeon growing up, you probably either lived in a different country or you had a very shitty childhood. But my God, I still very much enjoy these shows to this day. It's when I watch these shows, it's a matter of separating the art from the artist. I love iCarly to death. It was my favorite show growing up, right beside Drake and Josh and SpongeBob. Drake and Josh was my all-time favorite. There should have been so many more episodes. But man, just knowing all the things that happened behind the scenes, I'm kind of glad there was no more episodes. It's heartbreaking. It's awful that this happened. With how unrestricted and how loose Hollywood is about things that go down, unfortunately it will probably continue, and we need to work together in order to make sure it stops, because we don't want any young actors and actresses who are promised to live out their dreams going through a literal nightmare. So let me know what you guys thought about Quiet on Set if you watched it. And if you guys want to, it's not that hard to find. Just type Quiet on Set and they'll give you a streaming service to watch it on. Or watch it on TV. It's on Investigation Discovery. So I love you guys. Thank you guys for listening and watching. This was one of my more darker videos. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'm going to see y'all in the next video. Check out the gaming channel if you haven't already. PokeTom is out. Stay awesome, guys.